Good evening, everyone. Welcome to League of Leaders Hot Topic Tuesday. I'm Zach Sooty. We have Al Fragnoli and our special guest, Brandon Gunn. Brandon, going to lead it off tonight, asking you the first question. The NFL schedule release is this Wednesday. Any teams or possible matchups that you're looking forward to this year?
Well, Zach, there are a huge amount of storylines going into this season. One that with a bullet, in my opinion, is Aaron Rodgers going to be with the Green Bay Packers or not? I'm really interested to see. I know we're talking schedule release, but there is still some movement that can happen, and I'm really curious where he ends up. He could end up. Rumors have him going to Denver, some other teams out there to make a bid for him. I think that that's going to be a really interesting storyline as we get into the schedule release. But more so, in terms of the schedule itself. So my hometown Lions take on the Rams, where they traded Matthew Stafford to in this past offseason. I think that that's going to be a very intriguing matchup. I also think the rookies, watching those guys play and just seeing who they play in their first campaign. When we talk about Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, all of the highly billed quarterbacks that are entering the league this year. What do you think, Zach?
Well, I've been paying attention to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and their opponents have been released, but we don't know the actual schedule. But no matter where Aaron Rodgers lands, whether it's Green Bay or Denver, he'll be playing the Steelers if it's one of those two teams. I think the Steelers, my hometown team, has probably one of the most difficult schedules. You got the Packers, you got the Broncos, you got the Chiefs. So it's a tough schedule. I think the AFC North's really strong this year. So I'm anxious just to see how that plays out, and where their bye week, I think, is going to be very important this season. I think the last year of Ben Roethlisberger's contract, they did draft a running back. They got some help on the offensive line, but I don't think it's enough. So it's going to be interesting to see how this season plays out for them. And I think the schedule, as difficult as it is for them, is going to be very important on their travel days, their bye weeks, and could be huge, factor in getting an extra win or two to be competitive in the AFC North. Al, what are your thoughts on the NFL schedule this year?
Yeah, well, Zach, I'm looking forward to seeing Big Ben and what's probably going to be his last year too. So I thought that was nice that you brought that up. I am looking forward to seeing him play for the Steelers. I hope he has a great year. Brandon, you mentioned the return of Matthew Stafford here from the Rams to the Lions. Let's be real. Nobody cares about watching Detroit Lions football, so I don't really care about that Lions-Rams matchup at all. I do agree with your point on Aaron Rodgers. I'm curious to see where he ends up. It's probably not going to be Green Bay, so I do want to see what team he lands on and who he's playing for. Justin Fields, Chicago Bears. Probably not going to be a starter in week one, but I do think he's going to be a starter pretty quickly this year at some point. I don't think Andy Dalton is going to stay healthy. I hope he does, because you never want to see injuries upon anybody, but I just don't think he's going to be healthy throughout the entire year. I think Justin Fields is going to jump into that role right away, and I want to see what he can do, because I think he's going to be something special in this league. And Brandon, you also mentioned seeing some of these young quarterbacks, seeing what they do. Trevor Lawrence, I'm excited to see him. Zach Wilson, I don't think is going to pan out with the Jets. Hopefully I'm wrong, but that's what my hunch is. And who knows if he even starts right away this year, but we'll see what happens there. A particular matchup that I'm looking forward to is the New England Patriots against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that'll be something fun just to see the storyline that goes on there with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And then Julian Edelman, is he going to potentially come out of retirement and play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? It wouldn't shock me to see that happen. I want to see what Tom Brady can do yet again at the age of 44, see if he can repeat as another NFL champion this year. People are talking about an undefeated season. I don't think that's going to happen. It's pretty hard to do. But there's a lot of storylines, as you mentioned, Brandon. I'm looking forward to those the most. So we'll see what happens. But it'll be exciting to see what the schedule release says this Wednesday on the NFL Network. Jumping into our next question here, Detroit Red Wings, their season is done, over with. It's concluded. NHL regular season coming down to the last few days here before postseason hockey happens. Obviously, the Red Wings are not in the postseason yet again this year. Seems weird to think that this is the 5th straight year of no postseason hockey here in Detroit after 25 straight seasons. Brandon, we know you're a big hockey guy here. Is Jeff Blashill going to be the Red Wings coach next year? Is he going to be behind that bench, or do we think it's going to be somebody different? What do we think General Manager Steve Yzerman's going to do?
So I do believe that Blashill is going to be back next season, and there's a few reasons for it. Anybody who's watched the Red Wings this year can see that they just do not have an NHL caliber team that they're trotting out on the ice every night. But even with that, and let me first say that I'm not advocating Blashill as the next Scotty Bowman, next great coach or anything like that. I just think that we're in a place in the team's development where he's essentially going to get a chance to be at very least a bridge coach. And as this team starts to get better, show what he can do to get these young guys coached up. But some things from the season that I thought were really interesting is that although they did not have an NHL caliber, I mean, the only position group that was NHL caliber was the goaltending. And the goaltending was exceptional towards the end. But in the first half of the season, Thomas Greiss actually had the worst goals saved above average in the league out of all starters. So he was just not doing much for what we thought was going to be a good 1-2 punch tandem between him and Bernier. So, and Greiss was letting in these goals while having the 8th least amount of high danger chances against. So the chances that the opponents were getting were not that good. And the 10th least of high danger goals. So the goals and the shots were not coming from really dangerous parts of the ice. And so the defense was really holding up. And if you look at the defensive squad, you're looking at Filip Hronek, who's probably a 3rd or 4th defenseman on a good team. And he's our number 1 guy. When you look at the offensive output, we were 15th in the league in expected goals for. So that would put the Red Wings right in the middle of the pack. The actual goals for, they were 31st in the league. They had 32 less goals than expected on the year than they should have had based on the analytics. Special teams definitely has to get better. Special teams were brutal, both power play and penalty kill. But I'm looking at this roster, I'm looking at the record, I'm looking at everything. 19, 27, and 10 at the end of the year, with Greiss having a horrific start to the year. And I just wonder what a better coach does with that. I mean, are you looking at what, 2 to 3 wins, or maybe, if that? And so I think that right now is just a bad time to bring in a coach that his words may be wearing thin by the time this team is ready to be competitive. So a little long-winded, but that's my justification for believing that Blashill will be back for at least next year, potentially 2. What are your thoughts there, Al?
Yeah, I agree with you. You brought up a lot of great points on the analytics and all the numbers that are out there. Special teams was atrocious this year. I think that's what was most alarming to me is I would like to see a little bit more progression in their penalty kill and their power play, and we didn't really see that. But again, to your point, their lineup really isn't that good right now. And we got to think that with COVID-19 happening, a lot of these younger players really didn't get the development that they would have received in prior years, right? So I think that Jeff Blashill had a lot of success with the Grand Rapids Griffins, the farm system team of the Detroit Red Wings. I know that's a completely different beast. It's not necessarily going to make him a great NHL coach, but what I do believe is that he does a really good job at developing some of the younger talent. So with that being said, he hasn't had the results here in Detroit. I still think that you got to keep him. I do believe Steve Yzerman's ultimately going to make sure that he's the head coach next season, at least. We'll see what the future after that holds. I don't think, to your point, Brandon, on what you're saying too, I don't think that he is necessarily the coach of the future. By the time the Red Wings are good again in the next couple of years, we hope, that'll almost, it sounds crazy, put him at the helm for close to a decade, right? And so at that point, even with Mike Babcock, his voice became stale at times too, right? When coaches sometimes are with the same organization for 10 plus years, that voice in the locker room can become a little bit stagnant. So I think that in the coming years, you'll see a different person behind the bench leading the Red Wings. But next year, it's probably still going to be Blashill, in my opinion. And I don't see really anything wrong with that. You know, the lineup, as we talked about, is not that good. So we'll see what happens moving forward once we have a full training season. And hopefully by next year, everything should be pretty darn normal. And we'll see what happens. But I do think that Steve Yzerman's going to retain Blashill for at least another year. So we'll see what happens, though, as we progress into the offseason here. We'll jump into our next topic. We're going to transition from the NHL over to the NBA a little bit. So the Los Angeles Lakers have slipped to the number 7 seed at the moment. Obviously, the defending NBA champions here. If they match up against the Golden State Warriors, obviously what the NBA is doing right now is the 7 versus 8 seed, and then 9 versus 10 to kind of determine what's going to be the 7 and 8 seed in the postseason. Should the Los Angeles Lakers be a little bit concerned dropping into the 7 seed if they're going to match up against the Golden State Warriors? Zach, we'll start with you here on this one. What are your thoughts about the Lakers and their odds to progress through the postseason this year?
Yeah, you know, watching the Lakers, I think they have a lot of potential. I think they can turn it on and win games, but to drop to a 7 seed and play a team like the Warriors, are they the best team in the NBA right now? The Lakers, I don't think so, and I think whoever they play, they're going to have trouble with. So I don't see them making it very far into the playoffs, and I just I don't think they're playing to their potential, and I don't think they're going to turn it on, if you will, for the playoffs. Brendan, any thoughts on the Lakers?
Yeah, so should they be concerned? I think they should be concerned, and not just because of playing Golden State. Like you said, Zach, they're just not playing their best basketball. But then I turn around and look, and if there's one league that I think you can kind of get away with sleepwalking for part of the season, I'd say it's the NBA, just to turn it on in the playoffs. And with the talent on that team, I think that they have the potential to turn it on. And the sports books would actually agree. I was surprised when I was doing some research earlier for the NBA futures that they have the best odds to win it all, right behind Brooklyn. So should they be worried? Yes, because you never want to go into a playoff situation not gelling and not playing your best basketball or best in any sport that you're going into the playoffs in. But you really want to be clicking on all cylinders, and they're just not. But they could very well right that ship pretty quickly just with the NBA's format. What do you think, Al?
Yeah, a lot of interesting points that you brought up there. I agree with a lot of what you just said, Brandon. Out of all the 4 professional major sports team programs, I do think that the NBA is probably the most likely league where you can struggle during the regular season, sneak into the postseason, and then turn it on and get it going. With that being said, though, I mean, the Los Angeles Lakers are definitely a dangerous team. Don't get me wrong. I mean, LeBron James is not playing, hasn't played for a while. He's unhealthy. Is he going to come back and be effective? I think so. He's typically a great postseason basketball player. He did mention something a couple of weeks ago that with this injury, he doesn't think he'll ever be at 100% again in his career, which is a little bit alarming, a little bit scary. But still, an 80 or 90% LeBron James is going to be a lot better than almost the entire league, right? So at 100%. So, I think what he does coming back, and the sooner he can come back, the better. We'll see what happens. I don't think they need to necessarily be afraid of the Golden State Warriors, even though they've been playing pretty good of late. I just think they need to be more concerned over the fact that they have not played good basketball for probably almost a month now. So that's something to be a little bit concerned about. I do think that even though we just said that the NBA probably is the easiest sport to not be clicking on all cylinders entering the postseason out of all 4 sports, you still do want to be confident in yourself, because if you lose 1 or 2 games right away, there is nothing else, right, in this play-in format here. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to really see what happens if they do make it in as a 7 or 8 seed and win these play-in games. I think they get bounced in the first round, whether it be Utah or Phoenix. I think they are going to lose in that first round matchup. It should be an exciting series. I don't think it'll be a sweep or anything like that. It'll probably be 6 games, 7 games maybe. But I just think Utah and Phoenix have been playing pretty darn good overall for the whole year. And I think the Lakers will be a first round exit. So we'll see what happens. We'll have to listen to LeBron James cry and complain about the format of the play-in tournament again, which will be fun for all of us to hear. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, we're going to shift again to another sport with the Kentucky Derby. Big news out of horse racing that has just come out. Medina Spirit, the winner of this year's Kentucky Derby the other week, test positive for a steroid. So they're obviously running through some more tests and everything. The trainer of Medina Spirit, Bob Baffert, has won his 7th Kentucky Derby, which is a record. That's crazy. So he's had a lot of success, but there's a lot of controversy behind his name. So Zach, why don't we start with you real quick on this one? And why don't you just kind of tell us, what you think about this? Is, are we going to find out that there was some funny business going on back there, or is Bob Baffert being truthful with what he's telling us?
Well, I don't think he's being truthful with us. I think, Bob Baffert to me has been someone that, I don't follow horse racing religiously, but my family is a fan of horse racing. We watched Kentucky Derby. We watched, all the Triple Crown races. And Bob Baffert is one of those individuals that he just looks like someone you can't trust for some reason to me. Just that kind of vibe. And I think his what he's done in horse racing, the accomplishments are amazing, but I also think there's a lot of just questions in how he's doing it. I think what says a lot is that Churchill Downs has already stated that they will no longer allow Bob Baffert to enter any of his horses into their races. So I think that goes to show that people are aware of it in horse racing, and they're just now maybe putting their foot down. But I think it's a long time coming. I'm surprised Medina Spirit will be going for the Triple Crown in at Churchill, but Churchill Downs. I'm sorry, not Churchill, but the second race here for the Preakness. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with his legacy. But I hope the integrity of horse racing is important, and we need to get past this. And the health of the horses and the integrity of the game, I think, is in question, and I'd hate to see that. I'd like to see it rebound. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
So I just think that this whole thing is interesting for a few reasons. You've got Bob Baffert, who comes out and says, the game is on thin ice because of the integrity and things like that. And this is the same guy who's had horses fail over 30 different has had 30 different drug violations over the course of his career. To your point, Zach, 7 times he's won the Kentucky Derby. He's won the other 2 legs of the the Triple Crown, a combined 10 times. So he gets these horses in good shape, but man, what is he injecting them with that? To me, it's just unbelievable. I mean, to have 30 drug violations and not have some sort of career suspension, or it makes you wonder how high it goes up. Because I mean, think about if you spread this to other sports. We were talking about Tom Wilson last week, right? And yes, he's a repeat offender. He's not a 30-time repeat offender. You start to look at this and try to apply it to different situations, and it's almost like it's a little bit of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, almost like they know what's going on or something. I don't know. I mean, like you, Zach, I don't follow it religiously, but I was just reading about this story and just all the follow-up with it, and it was really surprising, some of the statistics and just some of the views from it. So another thing I found interesting as a leisurely sports bettor is that bettors on Mandaloun, the runner-up, they are not being paid either. So the horse that came in first, if it turns out that Medina Spirit, so I know that there's another result that they're waiting on before they fully retract the win, but if that win is vacated, then that runner-up horse, the people that bet on him do not get anything. I found that is a really interesting storyline with all of this, but it's just a bad look for horse racing. And I feel like that's a sport that really could use some positive light shining on it when you start to hear about the treatment of the horses and things like that. So this is just another black eye in horse racing. What are your thoughts, Al?
Yeah, I agree with what both of you guys said. This is horrible. And Zach, you mentioned that he just doesn't look like a trustworthy person. Couldn't agree with you more on that. He looks like a dirty, corrupt politician, right? I mean, let's be real. You just can't trust him at all. And when he comes out and says, that he's going to be incredibly transparent with us, no, you're not. Brandon, you just mentioned he has over 30 violations. What is this guy still doing in horse racing? This is an embarrassment for horse racing. You mentioned the treatment of the horses and the animals. God knows what else is going on behind closed doors over there, but this stuff should be investigated more. It should not be tolerated. He should be done. The thing that I look at is whenever there's millions and millions of dollars, lots of large money, you're going to leave room for corruption no matter what happens. And this is proof and point that this is happening, and it's ridiculous and uncalled for, and I think it needs to stop and be done with. And the fact that he denies all of it is absolutely distasteful. It's horrible. I mean, what are we doing? So, in my opinion, he needs to be banned as a trainer from horse racing. Get rid of him. Get him out of here. We don't want this stuff going on. This is horrible. We don't need this sort of corruption. Brandon, you mentioned the betting. How ridiculous is that too? Somebody puts money down and then they come to find out this isn't going to happen. You're not going to win. So I don't know. Anyway, the whole thing is a debacle to me. It's an embarrassment to the sport. But let's get better. Let's fix the problem and let's move on. See you later, Bob Baffert. We don't need you anymore. Goodbye. End of story. So that's my take on it. I'm sure we'll have some more amazing topics next week on Hot Topic Tuesday. So we hope you join us next Tuesday. We hope you tune in this Sunday as we have guest Allison Wright joining us from the Detroit Red Wings. So we hope you tune in for that. We want to thank you for constantly supporting us and viewing us. And we thank you, everybody, for that. Thanks.
Thanks.